Well, I will test my microphone. Please tell me whether you hear me well. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure, and it's a nice occasion to meet Tibor Beck, whom I also know from Zurich. Well, I would like to give a small introduction to what we are doing together with Florian, my partner in the office and in life and at home. I chose to present four doors of four projects together with maybe inspirations, things that we came across while working, things that you just pick up along the way. And one of them is Bernhard with his book Correction. And I would like to use it to show you our house in Leipzig, where we are architects, clients, contractors. Maybe the sound is difficult now. Maybe I'm not too close. And I have to stop breathing. Wait. Okay, maybe I will try my best. We acquired this house some years ago when Leipzig was still very cheap. It was very run down. And since we don't have to ask anyone for permissions, we can correct and work our way through this building. And I'm using this book as some inspirations. Thomas Bernhard, who is writing about Rahmen, a guy who built a perfect cone for his sister as a perfect building, and it was so perfect that when entering the building, his sister, whom it was made for, simply died, and afterwards he started writing his memoirs and memories, and he's writing, I wonder, but I will not correct now what I've written. I'll correct it when the time for such corrections has come. And then I will correct the corrections and correct again the resulting corrections and so forth. We are constantly correcting and correcting ourselves most rigorously because we recognize at very moment that we did it all wrong, wrote it, thought it, made it all wrong, acted all wrong, how we acted all wrong, that everything to this point in time is a falsification. So we correct this falsification and then again correct the correction of this falsification, and we correct the result of the correction of a correction and so forth. I'm reading this long passage because he's, very ambitious in this correction, maybe also the way that we work through this house. And you can see, for example, the door, one of the first ones that we built, which was also good to use during the summer without any glass or real, climate use. And after a while, when it became cold, we had to fix it a little bit. And then, of course, after a while, also, put a glass in it and finish it so it can be used. And as these corrections maybe can also be read as a correction of the house, which is a little bit small, almost downscaled. We made the door blade bigger than the opening because the house was not so magnificent as all the other like 19th century houses. And with building this one door plate, you also had to make some more adaptations to it, like, for example, the way it closes with a specifically made metal plate, which is also, and a lock that is built into the door itself. And then maybe for the next floor, we corrected our initial design. We made a twin pair of doors, and you can see also in the staircase that has originally been stolen for firewood by the neighbors. So we have a temporary one that 2 doors are already built, while the other story of the house, although we are living in it, is still empty. And yes, now with temperatures declining, we also made another small correction and added this door closer. And maybe another view into the staircase where you can also always read which parts of the buildings are inhabited and which are still bare. And in the beginning, maybe this is an impression of some of the bare walls. It's nice to learn that these buildings are easy to demount and you work with the material. Yeah, very basic means. And yeah, it was fully populated by pigeons. Unfortunately, it took some years to clean it up. And we had the chance to maybe correct a lot because there was also not so much substance that you had to keep or that was worth keeping. So we stripped everything to the blank bare walls. And yeah, another image of a destroyed room almost with staircases that you built through the building to find holes and climb up through these holes since we didn't have a staircase anyways. And maybe moving to the outer side, you can see that it was covered with a net, and we used a year that a contractor in the beginning let us scaffolding sit. We could take for, we didn't have to pay for a lot, so we could attack all these ornaments of the facade ourselves and start correcting the ornaments and use some plastered ornaments or also learn which parts are made from plaster or concrete. We used two component silicon to make molds of all the existing ornaments, and then you could see every week you can make a new ornament because that's the time that it uses to dry, and when you have to make 52 of them, it takes a whole year, which we did while commuting between Zurich and Leipzig. And of course, in winter it's difficult because the silicon doesn't react and is just liquid. And we managed to mount back these ornaments with some glue and chemical anchors, and other parts which are made from sandstone you just repair on site. It's nice to learn which parts of the facade work in which way. And in the end, the plastered walls just had a small, very thin layer because we didn't manage to bring up all these plaster buckets up on the ladder. And I think it's a phase that will remain like this until maybe in 2 years, if we can afford it, or if it's necessary, we have to rebuild the scaffolding and then maybe finish or even repair what we already did. And maybe another part of Thomas Bernhard correction is this perfect cone that he's so obsessed with, that he built for his sister. After his sister's death and after his own death, and the cone must be entirely abandoned to nature. There's no telling how far Reuthammer's heirs will go along with that stipulation. Once she sees the cone, she's bound to be happy underlined. A perfect construction is bound to make the person for whom it was constructed happy, must make her happy again. The idea was to make my sister perfectly happy by means of a construction perfectly adapted to her person. Well, in her case, the whole building was so perfect that in the end, the idea basically failed. So this is maybe not what we take as a reference, but the obsession and maybe the positive way that working on your own and your corrections could have. And since our building is not perfect at all, we can afford to make all these corrections because we think we invested little means. So it also doesn't hurt to rethink what you've done. For example, maybe like a simple double glazing, which doesn't have a frame, so no window that we bought from a contractor, just something that we ordered online, which we fixed with steel brackets that we also ordered online, and some silicone around it to fix it. Or maybe also the kitchen with like some planks which were not eaten away by the mold, but that were still good, we kept, and then the rest is just an oriented strand board floor to patch the parts. And then a ceiling that we didn't dare to cover with plasterboard, so we just fixed it with some aluminum foil, like a silver room. So maybe later on, if fire projection becomes an issue, we will still add the plasterboard, but nothing is lost. So for us, maybe it's also a good way to postpone decisions that, of course, are always hard to make when it's for yourself. And then you have our bathtub in the beginning. The bathroom was a big problem because it was a small space that we wanted to inhabit in the beginning. So when we decided to throw out the toilet and just have this bath in the kitchen, we had more space, and it works for us right now. And it's also perfect to cook and bath at the same time. And yeah, maybe another one is the door in San Remo, a social housing project that we built together with Juliane Greb and Peter Krak in a collaboration. And I chose this main door that is the entrance for all of the inhabitants, 100 people. They take it and access the building. And the, maybe inspiration is coming from Sophie Lewis' full Surrogacy Now, and surrogacy in English is Leihmutterschaft. So she's really going at it and basically advocating to abolish the classical family, to adopt children in a friendly or way, so that it doesn't matter on like biological genetics whether children are your own or not. Basically, she's asking us to take care of all the children, and maybe this could also be read as an ambition that we take in this project. From the outside, you see the atmosphere in Riem, in München, in the Messegelände. It's 20 minutes from the center, and it's a very homogeneous area. Also, the top floors, they're just housing, are very repetitive, but then the ground floor, which has some special functions like big windows for like a community center who's renting it, and this main entrance door, which is special to show maybe this building works more communal than others, draws some attention. And it's leading into a very long hallway where there's signs of work that maybe sometimes are hidden in the private realm, and here are exposed to the public and the outside. So you can see a workshop here close to the entrance, and also a kitchen space where people living there can also invite the neighbors, and it's it's right next to the door. So some of the signs of reproductive work are not taking place in private apartments, but in this communal space. And you can also find some more functions, like, of course, the letterbox and a small cafe that they use the kitchen for, and also, washing facilities, storage rooms, and like corners for homework building. So the idea of course, is to try to take the space where all these functions overlap to build up this communal aspect of taking care for each other in a more collective mode. So Sophie Lewis writes, "Let's hold one another hospitably, explore notions of hereditary parentage, and multiply real, loving solidarities. Let us build a care commune based on comradeship, a world sustained by kith and kind more than by kin," saying family. "Where pregnancy is concerned, let every pregnancy be for everyone. Let us overthrow, in short, the family." So she's also very radical, promoting the abolishment of sex and gender altogether. So that's maybe some of the passages that you can read. And also when we set on this competition, and we were working on a lot of different modes of for flats. In the competition brief, we rather proposed to offer one structure where we hoped that all of these different flats and modes of living could be taking place. And of course, where there's also like no typical master bedroom, children bedroom structure to be found. So we combined all the services, staircases, bathrooms, kitchens in the middle, and thought that the facade rooms can stay flexible and neutral in use. And on the left side, you can see the structural plans with very little concrete beams, because all of the room divisions are made in a light structural way and are meant to be flexible. And then already in the competition, we drew these diagrammatic plans where neighboring living rooms can be shared, kind of flats work together. And also a floor plan can be used for shared flats with a lot of bedrooms, and also a floor which is now on the 4th floor, where rooms have several doors and apartments are linked and connected also through communal rooms that are shared in between several other flats, like the light green one here. And inside, you can see one of these shared spaces here shortly after they moved in. And maybe it's again doors that made the difference here, because we tried a lot to not make them look like an entrance door to the apartments, but more like doors off between rooms, and you cannot really see where one flat starts and where it stops. So this is a shared space between an apartment in the back with already 2 doors and also a bathroom, another bathroom door, bathrooms with several doors, and then here like a small one-sided apartment with a double door. When the inhabitant opens it, she can also live to both sides of the facade and take part of the communal life. And they have some expensive door closers here, which is maybe the specialty. And another view into this small apartment, and another shared space which is furnished as a living room, but also with this table game, or another version here with living room and also storage. This is another excerpt of Sophie Louis' thinking that children are not your own, but only like a genetic heritage is just a reassembled genetic package. And she is promoting full surrogacy, meaning to take care of everyone. And I would like to speak about the next door, which is a toilet door in the Biennale. It was one of our favorite projects in Venice, because we also learned a lot, and it was also quite a challenge. And I would like to use Mary Douglas' Purity and Danger to describe it, because she's trying to find out a lot about taboos, because she thinks the way we think about taboos also explains how we live together or how we structure our society. And this is she's going into a lot of different cultures, examining what we are afraid of, and in the end she thinks the problem of dirt, or the fear of it, is because the dirt for us is are elements that we cannot put in categories, everything that we cannot structure or sort into things we know are unfamiliar elements, and this in the end is dirt for her. So things that are maybe outside of familiar categories. And in the Biennale, of course, the toilet is a good example to talk about taboos. We practiced a lot during 6 months of talking to visitors and also maintenance. The the title of our exhibition, which we always said it's not an exhibition because everything we proposed there was usable and real. So there was nothing that was just purely representative. So of course, also you could use this bathroom and toilet. Mary Douglas is writing very specifically about the body because it's a symbol of a lot of our fears and vulnerabilities. We should expect the orifices of the body to symbolize its specially vulnerable points. Matter issuing from them is marginal stuff on the most obvious kind. Spittle, blood, milk, urine, feces, or tears by simply issuing forth have traversed the boundary of the body. So everything that is crossing borders, let's say, is bringing some chaos into things that we know, and that's why are also part of the taboos and fears. And the topic of toilets, of course, is one of these edges where you cross inside and outside. And she is writing some more to this. We can reply first that nasal secretions are not so limpid or clear as tears. They are more like trickle than water. When a thick rheum oozes from the eye, it's no more apt for poetry than nasal rheum. So she's talking about why is a tear purer than nasal secretions, and it has a lot to do with culture. Maybe another small excursion to how we built the bathroom. We collected a lot of material in the Biennale because the aim was to always work with what we found there, to not bring in any more material. It's part of our idea of open for maintenance, where we also maintain our environment. And we also found this material, these two Italian doors from the Italian pavilion, and made them wider and higher because this toilet had to be accessible. And accessibility is one of these topics that talking about toilets and taboos and inclusion also touches. So the idea was to make this enlargement of the two small doors visible. And here we mounted a side window to the former exit door of the German pavilion. And we also found this sink from the British pavilion who renovated their bathroom. So for us, it was perfect for these other 6 months. And we used this water recycling plant because the pavilion doesn't have wastewater or water, which was the beginning for us to think about an alternative way to build a bathroom, which kind of started this whole process. And another feature was this gender-neutral urinal for men and women. You sit on it forward and backwards, and it was a bachelor project by two design students in Bern. It worked very well for all the visitors. It was maybe an obvious one. It worked without water, since everything here works without water. It was maybe a little bit easier than our toilet, which you still have to get accustomed to, talking about taboos. And it's a design that is made as a dry toilet also to be used in the cities. So the idea is that you have a chute. So the inventors Tom and Florian took a lot of time to design this bag. They showed us how to cut it. We had to reproduce many bags also with the students. And when using it in the toilet, you have to put the feces in the bag and try to hit the urinal separately. And then, like he's pointing to, the bag slides through the toilet, and you could collect all the excrements basically in the basement of a building, of an apartment building. So this is the idea. They also have it patented. And we tested it 6 months at the Biennale live, and we also really also collected all the excrements. And I mean, of course, it sounds maybe funny, but we are really fascinated by it, because the idea obviously is also to use the products in the end as fertilizers and to try to create a circular treatment of it and use it in the end also for excrements instead of flushing down everything and then using a lot of energy to clean our wastewater again. So we worked also together with the Leibniz Institute, and there's the ETH spin-off involved EAVAC, who created this decentral evaporation machine where in the end you get a powder from your urine with phosphorus, nitrogen, everything that you can use on the field. And that's what we had to do in the end, empty all the buckets and take it off the Biennale area. And what we did is we had to kind of hide it because it's not allowed to transport these substances, of course, on the vaporetto. So we covered it with an alternative sign, and then we gave it to like a farmer who's growing biological crops on the mainland. So exemplary, we tried to one time show the whole process, how things could be done differently also in the cities. And I would like to just use the purity and danger for another sub-project in this Biennale exhibition. Mary Douglas is writing, first, consider beliefs about persons in a marginal state. These are people who are somehow left out in the patterning of society, who are placeless. They may be doing nothing morally wrong, but their status is indefinable. So things that we don't know or that are maybe marginal and cannot be put in these categories are special to us and maybe are not taken care of, like these ramps everywhere in the pavilions. And since we wanted to have all of our installations be useful and practical, and this ramp was broken anyways, and it's taking you detours to the back, we designed a new ramp out of existing material like the Ukrainian wood and sandbags, and build a more magnificent entrance gate that is kind of covering the staircases of this Nazi building, which Ernst Heiger rebuilt in 1938, I think. So for us, this is now like a symbol for inclusion, but also while working already, it makes sense because we could use it for our work and also some heavy machinery. And we spent this time to kind of camouflage the ramp to the existing, because we also we continue building with what there is, and in this way we kind of reinterpret also the whole building with its problematic history. And of course, also as an architectural idea how to work with maybe a reused material, we wanted to also test some other strategies than only collaging, like we did when painting everything in the same kind of stone. And then also during everyday life, seeing this infrastructure in work was nice. And after we set up all the exhibition, we started with a 6 months program where we invited apprentices and students of architecture every week, and they also used this platform to work. And the idea was that all the recycled material that we collected in the main hall could be used for small interventions in the city. And this is also this is how we collected everything from the Biennale area, and then also some bigger pieces of artwork, which in the end didn't fit and had to be cut off. And here you can see Latifa Eckhart sculpture, but only maybe a quarter remaining in the main room, and all of the material was used up by these workshops in our workshop that we installed. Kind of presenting all the tools, working tools, and one of these workshops, for example, repairing a small shed next to a very beautiful monastery right at the lagoon, and students fixing roofs with some of the wood of the pavilion, but also cutting or repairing another door. Very carefully cleaning it, and while cutting the material in the workshop, it was apparently smelling a little bit like frankincense. So they figured maybe the wood was already used in the monastery somewhere else, and it had this smell. So it was maybe already 400 years old. So you kind of start to treat it very carefully, only taking off what is really bad, and also taking this chance to, although the work is very small, of course, still, designing like they did with these dovels and patches that are shown in here. And I have a very short last door, because in this student work, it was maybe already, maybe I made a mistake here. Well, anyways, I didn't want to show this one where we also build a lot of doors, because we are obsessed with details, where all of the problems come together in doors. We did a whole semester with our students only working on doors, because you can exercise and practice a lot. Although it's only small, it kind of bears a lot of material for discussion. And in the end, I only of this semester wanted to show maybe the closing striking plate, which Lucius Burkhardt is maybe an inspiration for. It's maybe the minimal intervention, which is the English title of this book. And this is a closing plate here, which was broken on the top, where the door didn't close anymore, because obviously a part of the plate was missing. And although he's talking about urban planning and a bit much bigger scale, like landscape design, we also think it's suitable for these very small interventions that are nice for us, because we are in control of ourselves. And he is writing, if the ruin is an especially potent signifier of information that enables us to process the present, the theory of minimal intervention must concern itself with the construction of ruins. Whatever is unfinished or already ruinous in the antithesis of those neat solutions, saubere Lösung, that since always orthodox and always ending in disaster, destroy our world. So he's looking for like precise interventions, not like general big gesture idea, but specific solutions with the biggest effect, although the means are the minimum. And in this work, that was a repair work of students in Graz that they did on a homeless center. The students were already going to the hardware store, almost buying a new plate. In the end, they figured, since it's symmetrical, they just have to turn it around, because the bottom was still good to use. And when you turn it on the bottom, it doesn't matter, because this is not used for the door's closing mechanism. And maybe this smallest intervention here is a start, but maybe not something that interests us, because of course we can, like I said, have full control of things, but doesn't mean that maybe like in the toilet project, where there's clearly a bigger vision and you also have to collaborate with many people. These small interventions can always be like a start or inspiration. Thank you very much.
You all hear me, right? If I'm too loud not loud enough, just let me know. Thank you very much for the invitation and very impressive work, Anne. I have only seen your work presented once, I think, and it's nice to catch up that way. A couple of the things that you were talking about are also some things that us in our practice follow up. So it's nice to see that these connections also come are arising in different places in Germany and Switzerland. You recognize it, a kitchen. Anyway, I'm here today, but it's as Inge already introduced me. Everything that you will be about to see has been developed together with my partner Elena, who's also my partner in life. So another connection. So even to the smallest aspect, like texts that we write, and that always starts a discourse that we have together. So this omnipresence of discourse comes in natural when you work in a pair. I think this is something that most contemporary practices share. We try to we often ask ourselves how to position yourself, like when you were a younger practice. To put it in a context, we started collaborating 10 years ago while we were still students or over 10 years ago while we were still students in Munich. But officially our office exists only for 2 years. So a couple of these projects are also from a time where we were collaborating with different offices. And this idea of collaborating is something that follows throughout the next projects, except for the first one, which is just a collaboration between the two of us. And in the context of Switzerland, which has a very, very good competition system, it is still not so easy to position yourself as a young practice, because although the competition system is quite nice and offers a lot of opportunities, you still have to put in a lot of work, a lot of money. So the economic aspect is also coming into place. And so we try to position ourselves by finding different allies along the way. The context in which we work therefore plays a bigger role. So we position ourselves with the publications also that we do, the research that we do, and the collaborative projects that we do along the way. And this results maybe in creating our own context. This is something very important for us. And in this scheme, you will see a little bit here and there how this context is interconnected, and the following projects are divided into the infrastructure projects and platform, and these will pop up eventually. So in the last or over 10 years, the project ranged between publications and research, but also classical architectural projects in refurbishings, but also urban schemes. This index is with the projects follows a little bit our intuition and our curiosities, but mostly is retroactively trying to understand a little bit the relation between one another. And we are always followed by the questions of how to sustain ourselves, how to apply apply critical thinking and ideas into architecture and the broader idea of architecture, how to add value without extraction, but also how to behave in a certain way, which can also be slightly misunderstood. But what if somebody would ask us how we would define ourselves, we would always say that we are an extended spatial practice, meaning that architecture is something that goes beyond the built realm. So when we started studying architecture, the path of an architect was quite clear. So you would either work in an office or you would stay at university and follow an academic career. And this is something that this either or was something that we would never accept, and therefore we try to always do everything at once. So which is also very problematic. The first project Recording America is a research project that we started while we were still in the university, and comes from a mutual interest in the culture of American architecture and subculture. So by this project together, we started researching and investigating this idea of what American architecture is. It arose from the lack of knowledge about American architecture, something that wasn't necessarily taught at the university, and we started this research almost by finding this essay by Max Frisch from the 1950s, Unsere Arroganz gegenüber Amerika, which depicts a certain European arrogance towards America, saying, and along the way with this research, we were always confronted with a question like, why do you care about the culture of American architecture? Is there a culture in American architecture? And by finding the elements in the everyday a little bit, this is something also I think it can relate to what you showed earlier, Anne. So we were looking at other architects' works who were researching American architecture, but also in the realm of the arts and photography and things between art and photography. But also into documentaries, movies, video art projects, but also subcultural zines and magazines. And the idea of archiving became very important for us. So we always call these trips unscripted investigations because we do prepare them quite thoroughly. So we do this very intense mapping where we are trying to put everything in these maps that might be interesting for us to visit, and then we mostly book a first hotel and then see where the journey is driving us. And this led to a number of very curious visits and visiting places and meeting people. So we document important and not so important buildings, street scenes, and but also encounter various people along the way, and try to channel these in different formats, like publications, like this last one, Insight, which is a Houston-based magazine, but also exhibitions where we try to channel the videos, the scraps, the conversations, the audio files, everything into pieces. But also, this is the only project that we have in Düsseldorf, which was a 1 week exhibition of using public I don't know how you will call them in English again, but billboards, right? Public billboards, very important. Public billboards in the city, where we will bring a deserted Palm Springs mall into another deserted place. Buildings almost like a portal into a decrypt situation from one another. Everything that we gathered in information and material, we are now working on developing an online archive that is accessible, but which in the next step we will also trying to open up to other users than the two of us. Along with the research, another ongoing project is Superposition. Superposition is a project that a publication that we founded together with our friends and colleagues, Leo Bettini, Max Creasy, and Dominic Kim. Except for Max, everybody is also based in Zurich. This idea of publishing is something that we followed also from a long time. So whenever we did a trip or whenever we tried to channel the things that interest us, we would do a very small zine, which were all printed on a A4 one-sided printer that is very crappy but has a very nice texture. So during our studies, there was no initiative about a student magazine. So what we did was we founded our own, where we would try to position ourselves, but also would try to use it as a tool to get in touch with other offices, or with offices that started right after university or were young at least. And what we tried to do was to also make a dialogue, to create a dialogue between these younger practices and more established ones. And this is, I think, the first time that Anne and I met through this magazine. This was something that we did while we were students in Munich, and when we moved to Zurich, 4 of us, communication between everybody who went to different cities became a bit difficult, and so we decided to found a new magazine. And because we wanted to do something different, we were also looking excessively at other magazines, and we immediately fell in love with Terrazzo, which was a magazine that was founded by Barbara Radice and Eterosotsas in the 80s in the context of the Memphis group, but detached also from the Memphis group. And it was, I think, Elena who found one of these copies in a very nice antique bookshop in Japan. And when we found this and when she found this and brought this back, we were sure we need to do something in the quality of this magazine. So there are some visual similarities to Terrazzo, but also from the idea of having a magazine that sees the whole publication as one. This is something that we try to adapt from the original, so to say. I'll just go through some images. So the idea of this first issue, which is titled Hardcore Home, was to, we were in conversation with Freddie Fischli and Nils Olsen, who are curators based in Zurich. And we thought about what a new magazine could be. And the first impression we had was that the most boring thing to do would be another magazine about housing or houses, or the home, or the idea of home. And so we said, okay, we need to do that. So we forced ourselves to go through this idea of hardcore home. And hardcore home, the title came in through a conversation with artist and political dominatrix Reba Maybury, who was doing an exhibition at the time in Munich, and with Freddie Nils, and who came up with this title. It was just a month before COVID hit, and suddenly every home became a hardcore home. So this is something we developed. I think 90% of the magazine we developed pre-COVID, and it became more and more interesting then through the pandemic to work within this realm of what a home means. We organize ourselves in mostly digital, although most of us are in the same city. We hardly meet each other, which is, I mean, we meet each other regularly, but you could meet more often, especially because we don't all share the same working space. But after 3 years, we call ourselves slow publishers, because we only bring out a new magazine when it's really ready. So we don't have pressure from any side, because everything is self-funded and self-organized. And so whenever we feel that a magazine should come out, or if people are asking too much, like when is the next issue coming out, we finally do that. So between the first one and the second one, it took 3 years. But this is also because this is not our main job. This is something that we always still consider to do on the side, so to say. The next issue that just came out last autumn was Workout, which deals with this idea of the working environments and how the working environments you create and you work in actually determines a little bit the way how the work comes out or turns out. In this issue, we work together with Brussels-based architect Freek Persin from 51N4E, who's also a professor at ETH. And because we came to a limit of producing this magazine, a limit in thickness, which comes through the staple. You see a little bit the staple in the middle. It's a stapled magazine with a spine. We had to be a little bit more creative and created this insert, the yellow one. And this insert is what we call a mini monograph of the work of 51N4E, where we try to show a different angle on their work. Let's say a more polished one, because for those of you who know 51N4E, their idea of architecture relies a lot in the process, and so they don't like too much to show finished project, but more the process of developing projects. And at some point, Freek was telling us that we should trust him and that he, from now on, wants to take over this insert. So at some point, we decided to leave it to him and gave him full control. He worked with the graphic design and art direction office that he always worked, OKRM, whereas we work with Daily Line. Both of them are from London. However, this idea of collaboration then turned into a takeover, which we embraced because, of course, it also is a relief to give somebody work and not to micromanage all the time. After we published Superposition, we were asked by friends from Milan who we met a year before, or then colleagues, now friends, if we want to join their team to found a new magazine, which is a sister publication of Milan-based Kaleidoscope, which is called Capsule. So Alessio Ascari, who's the editor-in-chief and founder and creative director of Capsule, wanted to build up a new magazine. That's something that's also rose during the pandemic, where he had time to foster the whole Domus and Casabella archives, and came up with the idea of what the idea of radical design and desire theory could mean today. And so he gathered a team of people to create Capsule, which is an annual magazine, which is strictly related also to the Salone del Mobile in Milan, so the Milan Design Week now, where we publish this magazine once a year, or more, it's more a book. And this publication is divided into two parts. It's it has so-called feeds and stories, feeds and specials. Sorry. The feed is a one-sided image, so one image on one side and the text on the other side, which is no longer than 500 characters, 500 words, in order to fit an Instagram post. So this is something related also to bringing a print medium into the realm of social media. And the specials on the other side are these longer stories where there's often a collaboration between an office, but also a company or a brand. And last year, for the first time, the team around Capsule also introduced Capsule Plaza, which is an ongoing idea of also bringing this medium of print into realization, working with younger practices, working with established practices to create an environment of exchange, but also exhibition and listening rooms and discourse in the end. As you might remember from the second slide, this idea of platform is very important to us. So we work in different platforms. The one of them is of course ETH, but the other one is our working environment. And this is what Zurich International is about. Zurich International is an office transformation and is a little bit more than just a workspace. It relies on the idea of, this is where it's located. It's in this 1980s industrial block. This is where the rents are cheap in Zurich, or cheaper. And it relies on this idea of associations, Vereine. So in Switzerland, the easiest way to be a legal entity is to found a Verein, an association. So in order to rent this space, we founded this association and got together with a number of people. And by this, we also created this table of Statuten to ensure, which is very short for a fine, because usually you have all these rules and layers, but we wanted to keep it simple and develop this Vereinsstatuten along the way. So soon we will have a revision and we will add some new ones and take out some old ones. But this is something about the process of finding this association that is still ongoing. So we are a group of 23 people, or no, 21, I think, that are all connected to architecture. So they're either practicing architects or teaching architects or educated architects, but also we always say architects plus, so they are working in the realms of architecture, publication, graphic design, or the arts. We organize ourselves in monthly assemblies. This was right in the beginning where we rented the space and nothing has been done. And we soon realized that the space didn't fit our needs. So our means of communication are Telegram and Google Drive, where we now have this, where we organize everything between contracts, but also communication between the members and to-dos and plans for what we do with the space. Because the space didn't really meet the needs of our of all of its members, but we also didn't have any budget. Everything that we did in the space was done by the group, which is a good idea, but also not so easy to coordinate with 21 individuals or more or less individuals who have mostly full-time jobs at the same time, full-time jobs being self-employed. But time is something that has been used as a resource, but also the resources that we found there. So what we did was we created this inventory list of elements that we disassembled. So we did a careful dismantling of elements that we didn't use, like the ceiling panels, drywalls, but also doors and other things. So the idea, the contract was that we get this space 3 months rent free, and but we have to take care of what's inside. And so we took in this deal. We did a documentation of the existing space, but also then building these flexible infrastructures, what we call plug and play, where we have everything mounted to the ceiling. So we took everything that was existing there away and created our new system ourselves. So you could do everything yourself except connecting the last bit of electronics to the plug, for example. So we did everything ourselves and until we reached that point to keep everything safe and economic. And at the same time, we also asked, for example, companies to send in their youngest member apprentice to do the job, because that also would ensure that it's cheap. We also work in this collective design workshops where clusters of people work together to tackle new design tasks that come up in the space. We're nearly done, but it's still a work in progress. And it's just for the scale, it's a 270 square meter office space. And this is the kitchen. But I have to say, so we got this kitchen very cheap because it's quite an expensive kitchen. But the kitchen top we got for 300 euros in France. So one of our members found that there. And the bottom is a very good copy of the original that we made in Zurich with a friend who didn't charge us a lot. So this is how we try to invent these things. So also we took an old server cabinet as a new cabinet for our dishes, and didn't bother to put any appliances into somewhere else, but just having them free on the side. Yeah, as you can see, there's still some things in the back that we need to get rid of. So if you need of plates, let us know. But this big space also enables us to create events and use it according to whatever comes up to our mind. So we had visitors from the TU Munich doing a trip to Zurich and doing their apéro at our space, but also private exhibition feasts and other things. As said, most of the projects that we're working in are done collaboratively. So this is a competition that we did together with Amateur Global from Milan, which are friends and colleagues who we met through superposition. And this competition was based in Basel, more or less in the heart. But at the same time, it's this area where there's a transition between the big institutional buildings of the university and the so-called Medi complex, and the smaller housing projects that form the heart of Basel. It was connected to a new a tram pass that would be installed, what we were interested in was to find a solution to make a connection between these two typologies of the big institutional projects, but also buildings, and also the smaller housing projects. So we tried to create a volume that is at the same time quite robust, but elaborate at the same time. And we wanted it to be a timber construction, and so we were searching for these robust structures in timber that could sustain this idea of fighting against other buildings in their surroundings. But at the same time, we were also interested in this idea of high and low tech, and how these elements can be transformed from one generation to the other. So Basel, in this area in particular, you have a tradition for timber constructions. So this was also a reason why we said we wanted to have that. At the same time, this high-tech element is something that came into place. You will see that with the images later, where we involved this multifunction beam, which has all sorts of sensors for this building, but at the same time, and PV, but at the same time has nesting places for birds. So it's a timber construction with also with the timber facade, which has these slits that you will also see in the reference. It's an office building for research, for the Bodmer Research Foundation. And of course, I'll just go quickly through these plans. What interested us in the end was also an economic factor of doing a competition. So what we tried to do when we did renderings, for example, we would not render the entire image, but only do half of it, for example, to save time and money. But also use old renders and collage over them. But this practice of not finishing an image was something that we kind of fell in love to. And also in the next project, the reuse of images, for example, is a big topic. We always have a tendency to be quite late with the images in our project. And so each project has a little bit also their own way of dealing with that. The second competition we did with Amateur Global was Davoser Pflug, which is a master plan and urban scheme project, but at the same time creating a new train station for Davos Dorf. For those of you, I mean, most of you probably know Davos from the World Economic Forum or ski trips. But Davos is a city that is divided into two parts. There's Davos Platz and Davos Dorf, with also two train stations. It's a Streusiedlung, which is a typical settlement which you would find in Switzerland. The proposal was to move the existing train station 200 meters to the new city center square, and to create housing and hotel projects along the way. This is the context that you would work on. So this is not the typical view that you have on Switzerland. So, but this is the reality of most Swiss cities. And Davos in particular has a tradition of the flat roof, the so-called Davoser Dach, which helps to prevent avalanches from falling down the roofs, but being a little bit more introverted and having these avalanches falling into the building and through a central pipe. So I'll come to that later. So for the urban master plan, so to say, we created 5 strategies with a public arena, slow path, biotopes, landscape technologies, and new multifunctions. The public arena has meaning that we created a couple of elements along the on the periphery of the square to let the square being developed into this new multifunctions, meaning like in the winter you have different uses than in the summer. The biotopes is an important aspect because underneath this square you have a huge parking lot, so huge trees are impossible to grow. So you have to think about a specific kind of plant that you plant plan that you would develop, and these landscape technologies would be elements on these square that would combine again high and low tech elements, being in the winter, being in the summer also a facility where you could shade from the sun. Quickly go through that. So with this Davoser Dach, we were thinking about a new idea of having a roof. So we tried to find a new solution for Davoser Dach, which is this elongated structure along the train tracks, where we would use also the structure as a biotope. I will come to that later for the housing project, but also the hotel. We were looking at traditional housing projects in Davos and trying to apply that to the new structure. This is the master plan with this big square. I will quickly squeak that. Yeah, it's a typical infrastructure urban project with a huge parking lot. But this brutality of the train piercing, for example, through the snow, is something that interested us as having a structure that can deal with these conditions of the harsh environments of Davos. So something that you should realize in Davos in the winter, you have these strong snow conditions. Even with climate change and warmer winters, you still have a lot of snow, and that's why we try to find reference in these snow pierces. We work together with another office from Milan, but also with friends of theirs who were then developing a new kind of aggregate concrete that would be porous, so that you would also could have the vegetation take over the building at a time. So in the beginning, the building will be quite harsh, but then over time it will be overgrown. This image is a reused image that we stole, so to say. We asked for permission from a competition that 51 N4E and Caruso Sinjan did. So this was again a way for us to produce images where we would put in our mock-up into this office environment that we took from 51. And it's for us a way of reusing images. So again, we have this problematic with the image use where we would use that, would recycle images. I'll quickly skip that. So the last project I'm showing is the latest competition that we did. We didn't do a competition in 1 year now because we were concerned now with other projects that consume most of our times, because we're still the two of us working. And this is a competition that we did together with Schneider-Türcher, friends and colleagues from Zurich. Claudio is a colleague of mine at the chair of Adam Caruso. And it also brings up the question of collaboration again, which always brings new complexities to the planning process. But with them, it was more than a delight to work, but also very fruitful for the result. So the competition, the site is located next to Rosengartenstraße, which is one of the busiest streets in Zurich, very loud. So it's a reuse project for a church. So in Zurich, you have over 50 empty churches, mostly Protestant churches. And the city of Zurich then wanted to, with this competition, find solutions what to do with these empty buildings. So this the program for the new program for the church would be to introduce, has an educational purpose, so introduce a library, a multifunction hall, and eating place, and secondary storage rooms. There's an adjacent school next to the building, which is in need of space, and instead of building a new school or an addition, they will want to use the existing church for this extension. So as you can see here on this image on the right, this is the church in the beginning of the 20th century where there was not the busy street. So it's this idealistic idea of a church on a hill that has completely changed. The church is a neoclassical church that uses Gothic elements, but is very typical also for the time in Zurich in the ending 19th century and beginning 20th century to have this historistic churches, and was used for in the last 2 years of it being empty for the Klimajugend, which is a climate youth organization that organizes rallies, but also productive strategies to fight climate change. But they're all students, so the church provided them with space in their building. And this is something that was important for us on a later stage. So there has been already a usage in this church that was a little bit ignored by the program, but not by us. This is the former main entrance that is now barricaded. And for us, it was important to ask the question of how to transform this spiritually charged space and reopening the building to a public. So we were looking of different strategies of how to work with a body and encapsulate body in a body, and found this very beautiful hotel that was, I think, it was built but torn down burnt down a couple of years later. And for us, it was this belly of the elephant that resembled this belly of the church. And this structure that was built inside is something that we found quite interesting, especially with this friction between the existing structure, so to say, and the new structure. So we built our own elephant belly, where we have quite a rigorous system of putting functions in, giving each function its own space, but also reacting to the changes of the geometry inside. As said before, acoustics was a huge problem, so we also wanted to make sure to seal the structure inside needed to be sealed off. At the same time, temperatures in this church in the winter are very low, so we also have to find a solution to. We also need to seal the structure inside off. At the same time, with the heat that this core creates, we also wanted to make these surrounding places usable. So for a school in Zurich, you have a specific mandatory of temperature where you would that you have to stick to, but at the same time, when you have a body that is that warm and that creates also some heat to the outside, you would create these, let's say, secondary spaces that we wanted to provide for the Klimajugend, for example, or other groups that could use the former stages. So we have a timber construction on tree trunks. The tree trunks are the same diameter and maybe even could be taken from the surrounding landscape that is around the church. This is the body in the chain. And so you have a ground floor with the existing, so you have the existing building, you have in the ground floor the food hall, and in the upper floor, which is a little bit higher, you would have the library and the event hall. And with the stages on the side being free, you create also space for these informal interventions. So this playful spaces for children to explore, and the goal was to touch no walls, but at the same time create these new these new points of interest, so to say. What it ended up is also a fragmentation of the church space. So something that was also important for us to take away a little bit the spirituality of the space. but at the same time, not ignore the existing building and having these relationships between the new structure and the old one. And a small story about the model is that we intentionally had this model for photographs for the competition entry, but we were very late with finishing the model because the ceiling of the church was so complex that we had to ask a friend to do renderings and hand in the model later. And this is the model in our working space. Thank you very much.